What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox. Happy Monday. Today we're talking Monday Night Football angles, also UFC 296, because we have our girl Minty Bets, who works with ESPN Plus and the UFC, giving out all of the best bets. I swear to God, sister, I've tailed some of yours and actually made some money, so I'm excited because I don't watch UFC all that often, but it's so good to have you on. We used to work together at MSG Networks. What is going on? How are you?
Oh my gosh, I am doing so well. It's been a really busy season. I feel
Yeah.
like this football season has been weird. I feel like this is my, second season with UFC and football. So it's been like
Yeah.
overload. And then we've had our first NBA in-season tournament. That was a little weird.
Yeah.
NHL. So yeah, it's been pretty busy, but I'm glad to be on with you again, Katie. I missed you so much when we
Yes.
worked at MSG together.
I
So
know.
yeah, I'm
I know. It
happy.
was so fun. We used to see each other every single week. Can I just ask, because I know we were on MSG, we would do segments about the UFC, and obviously we would always have you on. It was so great. But like, how did you get into betting UFC? Because there aren't tons of women who are into combat sports and betting it. I feel
This is
like
so
you're a
true.
trailblazer.
Yes, thanks. So I have been watching UFC since way before when, because I dated guys who like loved UFC.
Okay.
But
Fair.
during the pandemic is really when I had to rev it up because that was the only sport on. So although I watched UFC, I wasn't
Yeah.
extremely well versed in betting UFC. So the pandemic really like fired that up. And ever since then, last year, I think I made my first like guest spot on UFC Online, which I think you did too.
Yes.
And then after that, I got a call and they wanted me to be a permanent guest analyst on UFC on the Line. And then we
Amazing.
piloted a live broadcasting bets this year. So it's been a wild ride. And yeah, it just
Yes.
kind of fell in my lap, honestly.
Oh my God. Well, that's the best thing is when things fall in your lap, but also you did the work and you understood
Yes.
the sport and you impressed everybody so much that they decided to be like, hey, let's actually do something with this. So I love that. Yes, I have gone on. I love the two guys. But for
Jan
me,
and
because
Nick,
I
yeah.
don't bet UFC all that often, like to go on that, like I had to do a ton of research, whereas I feel like with you, you watch it, you know it, and you can kind of figure things out probably a little bit more on the fly than I can. But let's talk NFL right now, right? Because we had a crazy week 14 of the season. The Cowboys defeated the Eagles 33-13. Dak Prescott, 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. You know, Dak right now is pretty firmly in the MVP race. So is my quarterback, Brock Purdy. But questions about, what do you think of this game? I knew that the Eagles were going to lose this game. They
Oof.
just come off of getting the break speed off of them by the 49ers the week before. The Cowboys have been extremely dominant at home, and they've just been firing on all cylinders. Like the Eagles, to me, even though they had the best record in the league, they won a lot of single score games, right? And they were just kind of, we talk about in betting the kind of like luck meter. They were getting lucky on a lot of these things. Not that any of these wins weren't deserved, but they were on the right side of a lot of these very close matchups that really could have gone either way. But are you worried about the Eagles? One, and two, is Dak Prescott the MVP?
Well, let's talk about the Eagles real quick because I totally agree with you, not knocking the Eagles' talent at all because they are very talented.
Yes.
And Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have improved immensely over the past few seasons. Am I worried about the Eagles? No. I think that defense is a little, at the moment, inconsistent. They
Yes.
allowed the fourth most points per game, an average of over, like 400 yards per game in just their last 5 games. And as of recent, it doesn't look like they do well under pressure. It doesn't look like this defense is pressuring opposing quarterbacks very well. There's some turnover issues. So I think really it's consistency and they lack
Yeah.
consistency and balance. But as for Dak Prescott, I don't like to see the Cowboys do well, okay? But
I know, right? It's not fun.
yeah. But could he be MVP? I think so. Currently
Yeah.
he's the favorite, right? After that win. That win was
Right.
huge against the Eagles. They've got a tough test ahead of them facing the Bills and the
Yeah.
Lions. Dak has done really well limiting turnovers. Isn't he leading the league in touchdowns
Yeah.
and he's completing over a little over
Yeah.
70% of his passes. I think he's
Yeah.
doing so great, but I think there are other quarterbacks who could go ahead of him in this
Right.
MVP race. Your quarterback, Brock Purdy, Tua's doing amazing. Lamar is
Yeah.
doing really well, but no one's really
Right.
talking about Lamar.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything is going really well for the Cowboys right now.
It is going very well for the Cowboys, but you know what? It goes well for the Cowboys in the season quite a bit over the last couple years. It's when
Mhm.
they get to the playoffs
Yes.
is what matters, and until they can get past, I don't think they've gotten past the divisional round since, like, 1996, the last time they went to a Super Bowl, so jury's still out. I don't know that you can trust the Cowboys yet because, yeah, up to this point, they hadn't beaten a team with a winning record. Of course, they beat the Eagles, but we saw what the 49ers did to them earlier this season. So I don't know, but they're certainly heating up at the right time. And to your point, too, I'm not worried about the Eagles as well. They're a little bit banged up. They've
Mhm.
got a very easy stretch now. They've gone through their gauntlet. The rest of their games are fairly easy. They got the Seahawks coming up, and the Seahawks are a little bit banged up, although I was pretty surprised at how well this defense held up against the 49ers offense. I mean, but they
Yeah.
were kind of getting them at a good time as well. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens there, especially with the NFC East, because it's all tied up there. Right now, the 49ers have the number one seed in the NFC, totally have that home field advantage. But again, don't count the Eagles out here because they've got a very easy schedule down the stretch, and the Niners have a pretty tough one.
Mhm.
Um, let's look at the other kind of interesting game last night. Bills beat the Chiefs 20-17. I was on the right side of this. It was a
Ugh.
sweat. I don't know what it is about Josh Allen, but like I can't quit him, Like I keep trying to not bet on the Bills. I didn't do any Bills futures this year, which has, killed me over the last couple of years. But finally I felt like the crazy calls were going in the Bills' favor and against the Chiefs, which normally we see that the other way. Obviously, the big talk is the offsides penalty by Kadarius Toney with that potential game-winning play. You had Kelsey throwing the pass and getting the touchdown there. And Patrick Mahomes was very emotional after the game, said a lot of things. Even Andy Reid said it was embarrassing for the league that they didn't give him a heads up that Kadarius Toney was offsides. Curious what your take is on this. I certainly have some thoughts, but curious. One, Bills now in the playoff picture, or at least not dead yet, which is exciting. What do you think of the Chiefs?
Okay. Bills, I don't think they deserve to be in the playoff picture this season,
True.
and I totally agree with you. I can't quit Josh Allen either, and it took me like 3 years to figure it out. It's just
Yeah.
it's that baby face. It's
Yes.
that sweet
And he
little
looks so
baby.
sad on the sideline when bad things are happening. He's
No.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I mean, you're right. This is the first time we've seen Patrick Mahomes fired up like this. Like, he looks like what I look like when I'm losing Monopoly or Uno, you know? Um, but yeah, it did cost Pasty the win, but after reviewing that play, I mean, over and over, Kadarius Toney was offsides, and this was the right call from the refs, and I
Yes.
feel like the NFL this season, maybe for me personally, isn't that exciting. It's been a little sloppy. I
Yeah.
feel like some of the talented players who we have very high expectations
Yeah.
for aren't meeting those expectations. And of course, we have those injuries, bad coaching, silly mistakes. And to your point of Andy Reid saying that the refs should have given him a heads up, like what? It's the coach's job to
Yeah.
execute the best play and make sure it's flawless and it's a successful execution. And a ref's job is to penalize you when your players are making stupid mistakes that could
Right.
potentially cost the outcome of the game. So I think the call was right. I think the Chiefs, it's going around Twitter that like the Chiefs are feeling a little entitled. They've had it easy with the refs and stuff. And I don't know if
Fair.
I really agree. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I mean, that game was bad. It was a bad look for the Chiefs for sure. And I was on the wrong side. So I'm very envious that you were on the Bills.
Well, I'm by the way, I'm always on the Bill side and I'm always losing money. So
Oh.
it's like the one time, I was like, come on, Josh Allen, how is he going to screw this up? How is he? And, that was a really bad interception that he threw. And I was like, here it is. Here's when everything falls apart and you look so sad on the
Mhm.
sideline. It's so funny. I was talking to one of my co-hosts on my Sunday show, Kyle Long, who played for the Bears and the Chiefs,
Right.
actually. And we were talking about Josh Allen. We're like, oh, we really want the Bills to win. He's like, Josh Allen's just my type. And I was like, I know he's my type too. I don't know. I can't quit him. I can't quit
Yeah.
him. But yeah, on the right side there. Here's the thing that I think about the whole scuffle. Obviously, the Chiefs have been completely dominant for a very long time, basically since Patrick Mahomes took over as quarterback, and they have hurt a lot of people and a lot of fan bases.
Mhm.
And to a lot of people's, credit, they have been on the right side. Patrick Mahomes gets so many calls because he's Patrick Mahomes. And, a lot of times the Chiefs are the ones getting away with these things.
Mhm.
But I feel like Patrick Mahomes just snapped. And, they have been losing very close games, in the final minutes of the game a lot this season. His pass catchers have been insanely unreliable, and they've had bad penalties, and so I feel like he's been classy, and then he finally just snapped, and
Mhm.
it was a human reaction. Do I think he should have said anything to Josh Allen? No, because Josh Allen is the one person you shouldn't be saying any of that to, because he's been on the other side of it against you, Patrick Mahomes, for
Mhm.
years now in extremely critical games. But I think people, not that Patrick Mahomes needs a pass, and I get it. I understand what everyone on Twitter and on social media is saying. It's like, oh, cry, you finally get a bad call against you, but he's had a tough season. I think this is the hardest season that he's been able to play, and
Yeah.
they spent a lot of money on different things, but they don't have that true wide receiver one. Kelsey can't do everything, and it's been tough. And I don't know that Patrick Mahomes, excuse me, the Chiefs are a Super Bowl team this year. I know a lot of people
Ooh.
say, "Oh, don't count them out, don't count them out," but I'm counting them out. I'm gonna say that right now.
Ooh, okay. Maybe, like, offline, I'll have to see who your AFC pick is
Yeah, well,
for the
the Ravens.
Oh, the
I think
Ravens.
it's
Oh,
the
you know
Ravens.
what? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yeah.
And like you said, Lamar Jackson right now kind of underrated or flying under the radar. I feel like so many people,
Mhm.
interestingly enough, in the beginning of the season, everybody was talking about the AFC as this like juggernaut, and like the NFC was, the redheaded stepchild of the NFL. Turns out the NFC teams are the real juggernauts right here,
Yeah.
and the AFC teams. Now, granted, there's been a lot of quarterbacks. I think we've seen like 54 backup quarterbacks
Ugh,
or different quarterbacks start this season, because there's
insane.
just been so many injuries. And to your point, I think the officiating has been bad. I think there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of backup quarterbacks that have been playing, but also the defense. It's been a year of defense. I think we've been spoiled with offense over the last few
Yes.
years, and it's been a lot of defense, a lot of interceptions, a lot of extremely low scoring games. So I
Yes.
understand why you think
Oh my
it's,
gosh, yeah, I'm seeing I mean, I'm sure you've noticed all these totals are way lower than
oh,
we're used to. I'm used to seeing
yeah,
47.5s, 48s, and
yeah,
now we're at 36, 38.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
these are totals we usually see for, like, Steelers games or, like, Broncos games or Jets games, but they're, like, the totals for all these games, and it is crazy. I mean, it's great to see a good game of defense finally, but I'm kinda missing all the high scoring shootouts.
I know, and like the fact that we saw like a 31, which of course that sailed over, and all of a sudden the Patriots looked like a good team with Bailey Zappi, which I do not trust moving forward. But yeah, I mean, it's just been primetime games have been gross, just
Mhm,
really, really gross. And I understand what you're saying. It has not been as entertaining.
mhm.
One game that I found entertaining to sweat through, obviously 49ers beating the Seahawks 28-16. This was the offense kind of was not moving at a pace that we have seen them, but they are coming off a very emotional win. It probably was a bit of a letdown spot. The fact that this line swung all the way to like 13 and a half or 14 and a half from the 10, because Drew Lock came in and Geno Smith was out, was probably an overreaction. Purdy still threw for 363 pass yards, 2 touchdowns. Debo Samuel, back-to-back games with multiple touchdowns. It's so funny. At the beginning
Yay.
of the season, I felt like it was all about Christian McCaffrey,
Mhm.
and this back half of the season, I feel like it's all about Debo Samuel. But curious about what your thoughts are on this 49ers team, and how far you think they can go.
Look, Katie, it's documented, okay, when I was still with my old company.
Yeah,
My Super Bowl pick was the San Francisco 49ers at 10-1,
let's
and I
go.
even made a more specific matchup that the Niners would beat the Chiefs. I forgot
Ooh,
what the odds were for that, but we'll see. I
gosh.
really am locked in on the Niners. I do think it was an overreaction. They were such a big favorite over the Seahawks. I mean, in a divisional game especially. But yeah, they're like untouchable. They're doing so incredibly well, and normally by this point in the season, I was expecting kind of a decline.
Yeah,
And we did see a little like, not the most
3 game
perfect
losing streak.
game.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the Niners, and I'm so much more confident in them to win the Super Bowl. So I am right there with you, Katie.
Ah, well, hopefully it is. Well, I'm gonna be at the Super Bowl this year in Vegas too, so hopefully we have to see each other. But
Yay.
fingers crossed that the Niners do get there and win, so that
Yes.
you cash that bet, and then also my heart will be so happy.
Yay.
Um, One more exciting game from the slate, the Ravens defeated the Rams at 37-31 in overtime. I think a lot of people were surprised that the Rams were able to hold on this long. The Ravens have been such a juggernaut. Tylan Wallace's first game returning punts ends with him taking one back for a walk-off touchdown in overtime. Just a heartbreaker for the Rams. Lamar Jackson looked amazing, 316 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 70 rush yards. To your point, like, why isn't he being talked about more for the maybe because his story isn't as good? You know, Dak Prescott, obviously he's always going to be in the conversation because the Cowboys are America's team. Everybody likes to talk
Mhm.
about them. Brock Purdy has that Mr. Irrelevant to MVP
Yes.
storyline, and Lamar Jackson has already won the MVP, and you know, maybe people just expect this of him, but he's been very impressive in his
Mhm.
passing game this year. They finally got rid of their offensive coordinator, and things making a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't really know. Maybe Lamar Jackson is just always going to be viewed as a mobile quarterback. Like that's all he can do
Yeah,
is he can just run the ball. But yeah, I think Lamar Jackson absolutely deserves to be in the talks, and I would not be surprised if he won MVP. But again, there are other quarterbacks that do a little better. But I want to
yeah,
actually go back and highlight Ty Wallace's punt
yeah.
return for a touchdown. Did you know that was Baltimore's first punt return for a touchdown in 5 years? And he
No.
looked like he was about to go down so many times, but man, that determination, that agility is like no other.
Yeah,
It was such a phenomenal play, and I swear that every NFL team returns a punt for a touchdown at least, like, once a year or, like,
yeah,
every other year. I didn't realize
yeah.
Baltimore hadn't done this in 5 years, so that was
Right.
even better for Wallace. I hope he gets a bonus.
Oh, I know, he should.
He
I
should.
hope that's in his contract. I actually
Mhm.
love that too. And again, this Ravens team is, look, I mean, the AFC has lost a lot of quarterbacks. We'll go ahead and say that. There is no Aaron Rodgers, there is no Joe Burrow, you know, some of
Mhm.
their big guys. There is no Deshaun Watson. But the Ravens, I think the Ravens come out of the AFC, and I hope it's with the 49ers and we get a rematch of that Super Bowl, the Beyonce Bowl, where the
Yeah.
lights went out and Colin Kaepernick was there. Niners were down at the half, and then they made a good comeback, but it just wasn't enough. But maybe things will go different for us. It was the Harbaugh, both Harbaugh brothers.
You're right.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't need to reminisce about that. They lost that Super Bowl. Before we get into this week, Monday Night Football, we got a double header. Anything on the Week 15 slate that you feel like is something we should grab now before maybe the line moves?
Okay, I haven't honestly dived deep into
Of
it,
course,
but the only play that currently sticks out to me is going to be the Giants Saints under 36 and a half. And I hate
yeah,
it. I hate it so much because I've never bet an under that low before.
yeah,
And again, we're in a really weird season where we're seeing these
yeah,
totals set so low. Um, but yeah, I don't I have faith in New Orleans defense at
yeah.
home, and I see, DeVito and the crew struggling to score in the Big Easy. Um, now I don't believe with how sloppy the Saints are that they will find scoring to be easy either.
Oh,
So I have to bet this
yeah.
under, and I feel like
Yeah.
this total could definitely dip by game day. So I may lock in the under at 36 and a half for this specific game just because I don't think anyone's going to score.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I would like the under in that game too. The Saints offense is completely inconsistent.
Mm.
Derek Carr's been kind of hit or miss. I mean, just from injury, but also just his play this season. I'm going to look at the Broncos. I'm going to take the 3.5 points versus the Lions.
Hmm.
This Lions defense can't stop anything. They cannot stop anything at any level. They're getting thrashed on the ground. They're getting thrashed through the air. We saw what the Bears were able to do to them, and I don't know. This Lions team is always the sexy pick. They're like the Chargers. At the beginning of the season, they're always the sexy pick, at least the last couple, you know, with Dan Campbell. And people are like, oh, they're gonna go far, they're gonna go far. They start off strong. Um, and this is what happens. I don't know what's going on with this defense, but I'm going to go ahead and take those points with the Broncos to keep this close. The Broncos defense has been playing very, very good, and Russell Wilson has had glimmers of Russell Wilson of yesteryear. And I just maybe it took time for Sean Payton to get in there and turn this team around, because the Broncos at the beginning of the season versus the Broncos are only like a game behind the Chiefs right now in the standings, which is just, if you think about how they
Mhm.
started, they had 70 points dropped on them
They were such
earlier
an
this season.
embarrassing team. I had no hope, and I was honestly like, I'm not a Broncos fan, obviously, because I'm from
No.
Las Vegas, but like, come on, they are doing so well, and I'm
Yeah.
rooting for them. Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay with seeing the Chiefs fall off this AFC West,
Uh-huh.
but I don't think that's going to
Uh-huh.
happen. But the Broncos are on
Yeah.
fire right now. I love it.
Yeah, on fire. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are hitting the double header Monday Night Football. You're watching Moxie Bets. We'll be right back. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer: hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Welcome back to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Here with my girl, Minty Bets. We're talking doubleheader Monday Night Football. We got Green Bay versus the New York Giants, and then also Cincinnati and Jacksonville. That's not right. We've got Green Bay versus the New York Giants, and then also the Tennessee Titans versus the Miami Dolphins. Looking at this first matchup, Green Bay and New York. What are you thinking? What's a bet that you like?
I really like the Giants plus the points, and I'm even going to bet them to win straight up at plus
Minty,
215. Now,
Minty.
there is a lot of love, Katie, for Jordan Love and the Packers, okay?
Yes. Too much, you think? You think there's an overreaction?
I think so. I mean, yeah, they
Yeah.
beat 3 worthy opponents in the Chargers, the Lions, and the Chiefs, but it's usually when teams are on, a win streak is when they get the most hype and the most bets, but I'm not buying it. I mean, the Packers are a little banged up and the Giants
Yeah.
are coming off a bye. Home team plus the points. Like I have to. I have to do it for my Giants fans. And you're in New York, you understand, right? Like,
I do I don't know if I could get there with you. I mean,
right?
possibly the points. The money line, that would be a huge upset. And we are looking at Tommy DeVito here, who I love. I used to make fun of him, at the beginning when he first started. But then his family started to grow on me and I find his whole story to be hilarious. And I love him and I want them to do well. I could get behind the 6 points with you. Not necessarily the money line, but I definitely think it's worth a sprinkle. And if this hits, you look like an absolute genius, which
Oh
you
my
are.
gosh. I hope. But if not, like we'll just cut this segment like totally out, right?
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at Jordan Love, and I agree with you that there's a lot of love being shown his way. I'm going to take him over the 224.5 passing yards. You can find this at -131 over with our friends at Caesar Sportsbook. He he went through some rough stuff this season, but it does feel like he's starting to find his rhythm a little bit. I mean, over the last 4 weeks since week 10, basically he's 4th in EPA per play, 7th in success rate, 8th in air yards. He's actually hit over this mark in 75% of games in 9 of 12 games that he's played this season, including in 6 straight games. And you look at Wink Martindale on the other side, right? We know that he's going to blitz the absolute living crap out of him because that's what Wink Martindale does. And that has been very successful against, I would say, like less talented quarterbacks. You look at people like Mac Jones, Aiden O'Connell coming in as a rookie, Zach Wilson. We know the struggles that Zach Wilson has against better quarterbacks like a Dak Prescott, like a Brock Purdy, 2 of the quarterbacks that are MVP caliber, which I'm not saying that Jordan Love is, but I do think he's better than the quarterbacks that I mentioned previously.
Mhm.
Brock Purdy had 304 passing yards. Dak Prescott, 404 passing yards. So I do think that Jordan Love is going to have a more successful game. I don't think he's going to be as rattled by the blitz packages that Wink Martindale is going to throw at him. So I will take him over 224.5 pass yards. But again, we can still both cash on that one. Is there a second bet that you're looking at?
I there is, and it's a like a very unique prop bet. Both
Okay.
combined quarterbacks to throw under 1.5 interceptions. It's a little juice at -140. Now, Jordan Love hasn't thrown a pick in any of his last 3 games.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito hasn't thrown an interception in any of his last 2. The Packers have recorded some of the fewest takeaways in the league with only 6 interceptions this entire season. And the Giants, like, although we're in the middle of the pack, I still see like an interception thrown, but it's probably
Yep.
going to be from Jordan Love, with all
Yeah.
those yards he's gaining. So yeah, I think there's going to be less than 1.5 interceptions combined from both quarterbacks.
Okay, so I like that. I actually think that Tommy DeVito is going to be the one to throw the quarterback. Now,
Ooh.
this is juiced to -160. And the reason why I think this is that, okay, so he had those first 3 games interceptions, right? I believe he threw 2 actually against your Raiders.
Yes.
And then he's had 2 clean weeks. But those last couple games, somehow the Giants have been able to be like leading those games. So he's not playing from behind. There's 6-point dogs in this matchup. So likely game script playing from behind. We're going to see a little bit more of an erratic Tommy DeVito throwing more often, throwing more
Mhm.
aggressive. Now, this goes into the game script where I think that the Packers win this game. But however, you're on the other side that maybe the Giants are going to be leading this game. The defense is going to do what they need to do. And then if Tommy DeVito is playing with a lead, no interception. If he's
Mm.
playing from behind, I think he's going to throw an interception. But again, we can both hit this one. I do like Tommy DeVito over his rushing yards. That's at 16 and a half. The
Okay.
Packers actually have kind of struggled against scrambling quarterbacks this year, allowing the fifth most rushing yards. Two quarterbacks, Tommy DeVito, 83 yards on this season through 5 games that he has played. I think that equates to like 17 per game. So I don't know. He might be scrambling
Yeah.
a little bit tonight. Looking at the next game, the Dolphins and the Titans. This is a 14-point spread. This is double
Mm.
digits. This is 2 touchdowns favoring Miami. They've been an absolute juggernaut. That's one of the teams you like coming out of the AFC. The Titans, Will Levis, Mayo boy, kind of hit or miss here. This total 46. What are you thinking?
Okay, I cannot touch this double-digit spread either way, so I'm gonna turn to
Not
the
in prime time.
total. Yeah, not in prime time. So I'm gonna turn to the total, and I like the under 46. I think that's set high
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
I believe the majority of people who see this matchup will automatically assume that Miami's gonna run all over Tennessee
yep,
and that the Dolphins are going to do most of the scoring, and I guess I would have to agree with that. And although we've seen the
yeah,
Dolphins score upwards of like 70 points once, and Tennessee's defense is nothing really to write home about, I like this total to go under here. I
yeah.
think it's actually going to be a sloppy game.
Well, you got to think too, we're getting close to the playoffs, right? They get a nice healthy lead. They're going to start not pulling
Yeah.
their starters, but like taking the foot off the gas a little bit if they
Mhm.
get off to a comfortable lead. I don't see Miami being as aggressive. This is not something circled on their calendar. They want to limit the amount of injuries and make sure that they're healthy going into the playoffs, which is just a few weeks away. So I agree with you on this under. I don't know how much the Tennessee Titans score. So I'm taking Will Levis under his passing yards. It's at
Mhm.
210 and a half. He's been hit or miss this season, right? Like, he loves to throw the deep ball, but it's pretty inconsistent. I think his
Mhm.
completion percentage leaves a lot to be desired. Miami's pass defense, led by Vic Fangio, who I think is an elite defensive coordinator. You've got Jalen Ramsey back in the mix. I think they're going to make it really hard on Levis tonight. And you look at this Tennessee offense, when you have a weapon like Derrick Henry, they tend to be the more run first approach. Why wouldn't you? So I don't know that Will Levis gets close to this number.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Tennessee is going to struggle a lot in this game.
All right. Now we both have Tyreek Hill props. You've got one that's a lot more fun than mine. So you tell me what you're thinking.
I had to find a really, really like tempting one. I
Yeah.
have Tyreek Hill to score the first
Yep.
touchdown at plus 360. Tua has thrown Tyreek Hill the first touchdown pass in every single one of their last 3 games. And
Really?
yeah, they were against like bad teams, but the
Whatever.
Titans could be
Yeah.
considered a bad team here
Yeah.
at 4-8.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's worth sprinkling a little money on that plus 360 for Hill to score the first touchdown.
I love it. And I didn't realize that that had happened in the last 3 games. So I will ride with you on that one. I like him over on his receiving yards. I mean, it's crazy, 106 and a half.
So
But like,
high.
Tyreek Hill has been getting like 100 receiving yards in like every game this season. He's gone over 100 yards in 7 of 11 games this season, 64% over the last 5 games. It's really only the Jets and the Chiefs, who are pretty elite pass defenses, that have held him under this number. One of those games he
Hmm.
got to, I think, like 105. Titans defense is kind of like Swiss cheese. I mean, they allow a lot of passing yards up against them. They rank 30th in dropback EPA, 29th in success rate. So I like Tyreek Hill to just basically run all over them and be the cheetah that he is. He can score first, and let's get him over 106 receiving yards.
Woo, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's move on to UFC, because you are the UFC gal. So as of Monday morning, the lines for the main card are Leon Edwards, Colby, Covington. The welterweight title fight. Okay, so Edwards minus 155, Covington minus or plus 130. Is there anything that you're leaning on in this matchup?
Yeah, so my lean is currently on Leon Edwards to retain his belt. I mean, he's incredibly well rounded. He's constantly underestimated, and he has the edge on the feet. As for Colby Covington, he's aggressive. He's a pressure fighter. He's really durable, and he wrestles at a high level, but he hasn't fought since March of last year. my lean currently is on Leon Edwards in this one.
Okay, looking at this next one. I love this name, Paddy the Batty. Really just an incredible name there versus Tony Ferguson. What do you think about this one? You got, I'm always going to call him Paddy the Batty because that's just too fun to say. Minus 370, Ferguson plus 290. Ferguson, 39 years old, a legend in the UFC, but Paddy the Batty is becoming a star and really just has the best name in the UFC as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at this picture of him, which is thumbs
I
up
saw that
here.
as a document.
Absolutely
That was
love it.
a
So
cute
what do you think of,
picture.
yeah, what do you think of this lightweight division?
So first with Paddy, I mean, like you said, Paddy is a rising star. He's got a bold personality. He's very mouthy. He's usually an exciting finisher in the octagon, and lots of people love him. Personally, I think there's just a little too much hype surrounding
Mm,
Paddy the Batty in this particular fight.
okay.
I wasn't impressed with his decision win last year at 282 against Jared Gordon. But we can't let recency bias affect the pick, and I think that's what happens a lot in the UFC is recency bias. However, despite what the odds suggest, this is a tough fight for me to pick at least because it's rookie versus veteran. Paddy's only been in the UFC for around 2 years. He hasn't
Yeah.
faced top ranked guys. And Tony Ferguson has fought all the top guys. However, he's on a really bad streak. He eats too many shots. He's at the tail end of his career, right? And
Uh-huh.
lots of things going against him. But this price for Paddy is just way too high, and
Mm,
it's only going to get higher. At Caesars, he opened as a minus 260 favorite. Now he's bet all the way up to, what did you say, 370,
yeah.
345? Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere around the $3 range. But for value
Minus
purposes,
370, yeah.
yeah, I would probably sprinkle a little on Tony Ferguson, but I
Yeah,
don't really know if I have an official pick for this one yet, but it's going to be a good one.
I love it. One more thing, I wanna talk to you about. I don't know if you've seen this viral clip that's been going around on, it was from CNBC, but I've seen it, on Awful Announcing and everywhere, where Meredith Whitney, who has been touted as the oracle of Wall Street, and credited really largely with predicting the 2008 financial crisis, she basically said that legalized sports betting has made young men single. They're not interested in dating. They're not even interested in having sex. They're not starting a family. It's gonna lead to another housing crisis.
Mm, I have
Sports betting
I
is
have
gonna lead to a
so much
housing,
questions.
like, Meredith, get a grip.
Yeah, Meredith, who are you talking to? Okay. Hear me out.
Yeah.
She predicted that financial crisis of 07, 08, right? Which
Yep.
was spot on. But I predicted the Dodgers to win in 4 during the pandemic World Series. And but that doesn't mean I'm going to predict everything as
Yes,
accurately, right?
yes,
Also, all men say they're single and not talking to women or not interested in women, but they are in fact not single and talking to multiple women and sleeping with multiple women. They claim to be single on their taxes, sure, but like who's surveying these men, Meredith? Like
yes,
who are these guys? Because I'd like to speak to them. Also, my next point is things are expensive.
yeah,
Houses are expensive, gas,
yes,
entertainment, food. Like
yes,
men and women
yes.
are single, not buying houses because they can't afford it, not because of their $25 parlays. Um, yeah, so it's that is just an absurd correlation there by Meredith.
Well, and first of all, like, this trend has been happening before sports betting was legalized.
Mhm.
As you said, like, the Gen Z and even the millennials have been trending towards not buying houses, going on vacations, and, like, really living in the moment rather than planning for the future. That's something that's been trending even before sports betting was legalized a few years ago. And again, as someone that, like, knows a ton of degenerate gamblers, like, they're still having sex, okay? Like,
Yeah, they're
these
still
guys
doing
are
it.
are still, yeah, and they're out there and they're being single, so it's just it's insane. Well, it sounds like she's a little, like, prejudiced
Mhm.
and, naive and just ignorant to sports betting. I think a lot of people have this antiquated look at it like it's like it was back in, the 90s or something when your weird uncle had, like, the bookie in the shady bar downtown where it
Yeah,
was run by the
and then the
mob, and he
bookie
was
would show
his
up in your dining room and be like, "Oh, I'm just your Uncle
yes,
Vito's
yeah, and he'd get
friend,"
his,
you
like,
know?
keys broken off if he didn't pay his bookie, like, that's just, like, not what it is, so, yeah, Meredith, I think you need to maybe place a bet. Maybe place a
Yeah,
bet, live a little, have a good time because that is not exactly what is happening here. Before we leave, we gotta do the Mox Locks. So the one bet that you were taking to the window. I'm gonna go with the Tommy DeVito interception. It's at -160.
okay.
It's juiced, but I really do think we're gonna see Tommy DeVito in the first couple weeks, and he's gonna be under some pressure, playing from behind and a little bit erratic. So I'll take him for a cookie. What about you?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with the Giants +6 as
Yeah.
my lock for tonight. I won't go as hard with the money line, so Giants +6 could be a good one right there.
If you hit the money line, though, I'm gonna be texting you right after and be like, "Sister!"
Yeah, why didn't I
Um,
Let's get a
yeah,
drink.
and then, you could tell Meredith to go pound rocks because you can predict, even the most unexpected things. But Minty, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. You can follow her on social at Minty Bets, and then talk to us about where we can find you for the UFC fights.
Oh yeah. So every UFC fight night that takes place at the Apex in Las Vegas, I will be on the live broadcast on ESPN Plus giving
What?
out some of my picks. As for this next pay-per-view fight for UFC 296 and all pay-per-view fights, just go on to UFC Fight Pass. I'm on a show called On the Line, which is one of their only betting shows. And I break down every single one of my picks. So you can find me there. And also
Yeah.
follow me on TikTok at Minty Bets because I make like weird ones. So
She makes them if you are a gambler and you like gambler sports betting humor, Minty is definitely the best follow out there because she just, like, nails exactly how we're all feeling all day, like, when we win bets, when we lose bets, when bad beats happen, all that kinda stuff. She definitely does a good job with, like, gambling sports betting culture, so I
thank
appreciate that out
you.
of you. Minty, again, thank you so much. Follow her on all social platforms at Minty Bets. This has been Moxie Bets oh my god, I didn't realize those are quite similar. Presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social. Tweet us your questions. You may end up on an episode. We'll see you next time.